Alright, so today we're going to unbox and install a 100-watt Renogy solar panel. I've been sitting on this project for a little while. I got the panel, I think it was over Christmas, Black Friday, got it for about $70 and just been waiting for good weather. So we're installing this on the turkey coop. Just want to have some electrical out in the turkey coop. Some lights would be good. We're going to try to put some lights in. It'd be nice at night when we come out. It's about 20 feet long to have some lights if we need to check on stuff. So this is going to drive a single light fixture. Basically, it's a 100-watt, 12-volt panel. If you want to find your amps, it's watts divided by volts. 100 watt divided by 12 volts means it's about 8.3 amps, right? And that's important when you're putting together an electrical system, a solar system. You want to know your amps and you want to know your volts, and you want to make sure everything lines up, right? And by that I mean this produces 8 amps, and solar panel is going to be plugged into a charge controller, and the charge controller is used to charge the battery. So this is a 10 amp Renogy Wanderer charge controller. I think I got it for about $10. It's not the biggest, most high-end charge controller. It should do all right for what we want to do. So once the panel's installed, we run the wires through the wall and we hook them up to the charge controller. Charge controller goes to the battery. So I know this outputs 8 amps, and I know this is rated for 10, so we should be all right. At 10 amps, it's just a single, right? It's only going to work for a single panel. If I wanted multiple panels, I would need a bigger charge controller. Now, the charge controller says it can run at 12 or 24 volts. One panel, 12-volt panel, means I'm running at 12 volts. So my volts line up and my amps are good, right? Which is important. You don't want the charge controller or the solar panel, overloading your charge controller or anything like that. So as you're going, just make sure your amps line up, and really I'd say make sure your volts line up. If your panels are running at 12 volts and you got a 12-volt battery, 12-volt inverter, 12-volt charge controller, you're probably good. I wouldn't want to mix and match, right? And there's options in installing and how you design the system that you can control your voltage. So that's the panel. We're going into the charge controller. One of the items is the angle, right? We want the panel at a good angle to catch as much sunlight as possible. So when I look at my roof, I love my Johnson magnetic protractor. Put it on the roof and I can see somewhat flat. I'm just under 30 degrees on this roof. If you want to know your ideal solar panel angle for your location, it's your latitude. So my latitude is 32 degrees. So ideally I'd want the panels at 32 degrees. I'm just under 30. So that's good enough. I'm not going to try to tweak the angle or anything like that. I'm going with the roof. So if you really want to optimize, you can say minus 15 in the summer, plus 15 in the winter. So if you had the ability to tilt your panels and you want absolute maximum output, electrical output, you would actually tilt, add 15 degrees in the winter, subtract 15 degrees in the summer. Since I'm a little bit under 32, it's going to produce more in the summer than the winter, and that's just the angles and the way the sun hits the panel. So I know my angle. We're going to unbox the panel. We'll get it up on the roof, and I'll wire it later. But I just want to show you those two components, which is the solar panel and the charge controller. So let's get it. We'll unbox it and I'll show it to you. Hopefully it's good. I did peek at it. You don't want them to get cracked, and I probably should have checked it when I first got it to make sure there were no cracks on the panel. I suspect I'm past the return date. So cross the fingers. We're going to open the box and see what's going on. All right, so the pigs have moved on. Turkeys are still here. I've got the panel unboxed. Had to kind of pull it out of the box. Everything looks good. No obvious damage. It did not come with brackets. For some reason I thought it would come with brackets. It did not, which means I can't mount it on the roof today. I'm just going to show you the panel. We talked about volts, watts, kind of components of the system. So I said we're going to get it on the roof. I've got my charge controller that plugs into the 12-volt battery. Now when you're looking at batteries for putting together your own solar system, ideally you're going to want either a deep cycle lead acid battery or a lithium battery. You don't want to use a starter battery for a car. They're not designed for the discharge and the charge and the discharge in the same way that a deep cycle is. And by that, what I mean is obviously your car battery charges and discharges. When it starts the car, the alternator is charging it, but it's really not supposed to go below 90% full, right? So you've got maybe 10-20% of the battery capacity that's actually usable without damaging the battery. Deep cycle battery can go down 50%, right? So you can use half of the battery capacity. We've got a 100 amp hour battery. We've got 100 watts coming in, so it should be plenty of battery capacity to run the light. It really just comes down to, do I get enough power coming in from the single panel in a day to keep the light going when I need to run it? I think I will. The general math is, you say you get 4 hours of good sunlight if the solar panel is placed properly. So we know 100 watt, so at 4 hours it means I'm going to get about 400 watts of power going in at 12 volts. So as long as my load, when I'm connecting to it, it uses less than 400 watts in 24 hours, I should be good to go, right? I believe I am. I'm just using a basic light fixture. So we'll come back in. As I said, don't have the mounting brackets. We'll order the mounting brackets, come back and get this installed on the roof. Alright, since I don't have the mounting brackets today, I can't finish the install. I just ordered them on Amazon. It was like $8 for the brackets. I figured I'd talk through some of the other components in the system that I'm going to need to ultimately run these light bulbs, right? The whole idea behind this is I've got my light fixture, and I'm going to want to run the light bulbs in the turkey coop, right? So this is a 2 light bulb fixture. These are EcoSmart 60 watt replacement bulbs. I've got my 1000 watt inverter, overkill for sure, and then I have my 100 amp hour 12 volt battery. So let's talk about how all those play, right? So the batteries, the light bulbs say they use 9.7 watts. So in a 24-hour period, each bulb would use 232 watts of power. If I did both the bulbs, that's 464 watts for 2 light bulbs, right? So I know my output, if I did 2, is 464 watts. When I look at my panel, as I said, the panel, I'm only expecting to get about 400 watts from the panel. So if I did want to run it 24 hours a day, if I ran the 2 bulbs, I would probably, and reality doesn't always match the math, but I'd probably be using more watts than I gain, right? Which means eventually I drain out the battery. So one panel basically is going to get you 1 light bulb, right? 232 watts a day, 400 watts produced, 1 light bulb. So if you're wondering how much power one panel gets you, we're really probably talking 1 light bulb if I ran it 24 hours a day. Now it is dimmable, so if you dim it down, maybe you would use less, right? So there's that dimmable factor. So the numbers are going to fluctuate a little bit, so maybe two bulbs dimmed or 1 bulb all the way, right? Not a lot. So it's a 1000 watt inverter. These are 9.7 watt batteries, so even if I'm using both 9.7 watt light bulbs, so even if I had both light bulbs running continuously, I'm only pulling less than 20 watts. So 1000 watt inverter, 2 light bulbs, that's overkill. Now the battery, this is a deep cycle battery, which means I should be able to get down to about 50% usage capacity. So it's 12 volt, 100 amp hours. So if we did that math, 12 volts times 100 amps gets you 1200 watts storage capacity. When you go to that 50% usable, it's about 600 watts usable. So I have 600 watts usable on the battery, 400 watts coming in, maybe 464 watts going out, and I could produce up to about 1000 watts at a time. So all those components, I know it's a ton of math, right? Ton of math to figure out, but really focus on how much power is going in, how much power is going out, how long you want to run it for, and that tells you if you have enough battery. Can you run it for 24 hours a day? Do you need to cut it off at certain points? So it's a ton of math there. Know your volts. I've got a 12 volt battery, 12 volt panel. I've got a 12 volt charge controller, and I have a 12 volt inverter. So my all my components match in that sense. I already said I have 8 amps coming out of the panel, going into a 10 amp charge controller, which should be fine, into my 100 amp hour battery. So all that should be good. The only other component that I'm adding here is just a basic battery meter. This will do 12 volt, 24 volt, 36 volt, any kind of volts you want. Apparently it's just a little battery meter. So when I have the system set up and in place, if I want to check battery, you know, you get a little meter, right? Seems like something that would be good to have. You want your battery meter. So that's everything I've got. We'll order the brackets, we'll get it installed, and see how it goes. So this is part 1, unboxing the panel. All right, as always, thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.